Welcome back to the channel, guys. It's your boy JT. We've got another banger for you today. Look, we're getting ready to tackle the Waveform Scope. Now, a lot of times you see these scopes and man, they can be kind of intimidating. You see all these numbers, you see these graphs and these patterns, and it's like, okay, what's what? But today in this video, I'm gonna show you how you can be able to always be confident in your understanding of the Waveform Scope. All right, guys, here we go. Waveform Scope. Now, this is another one of those things where you can't break it, okay? I want you to understand this waveform scope. As a matter of fact, let me make sure that you guys can be able to see the entire screen. Let me come in and there we go. Now you should be able to see all of the page. My bad. Look, if I've explained something and you couldn't see, please hit me up in the comments and let me know, hey, on such and such video, I couldn't see this. Reach out to me or I'll just redo it and I can even send you something, yourself. But so I want you to be able to see all these things, okay? Now look, the waveform scope works as such. Okay, so we've got, this is our image. This graph, this information here shows us our image for our actual video clip. Now, the way you read this is from left to right, but what you're really paying close attention to is the actual trace of the video. Remember in the video when I was first introducing the general concept of scopes to you, we talk about the trace. The trace is what actually represents the pixels, the light and color information within your image, okay? And in this case, our actual subject. So you see this right here? There is a high concentrated group of pixel information right here. We can see this up here. We know that this is not our subject. We also know that this isn't our subject. We can look over here and kind of tell that, hey, this is that sky over here. So this area right here is this sky over here. This area over here is this part of the sky. And it's because it's, it was on a sunny day. I don't even think we're using ND on this, but just was out there. You can even see here where you can see the sun behind these life-size chess pieces. It's a little park here across from Toyota Center here in downtown Houston. Then also you can see this area right here as it corresponds to the actual image. Okay, so these are your highlights. You can tell what those highlights are, but we know that our subject is not way here in the highlights. So this area right here is going to be the area that we would consider the trace to represent for our subject. Now watch how the trace moves as we move our subject. You kind of see how he's moving. You see what I'm saying? You see that? As he moves, you can see where he is in the trace. That is the meat of what we're going to use to evaluate our subject. So we want to look at in terms of exposure for our subject. Here it is. Okay, that's it. All of this other stuff, yeah, it is part of the clip, it is part of the scene, but this is what we're focusing on right here. Everything else will kind of take shape, and you'll have the creative experience or the experience creatively to go in and kind of manipulate those things based on some of the other things that we've already shown you, like for example, using the layer node, using the parallel node, using the outside node. That way you can be able to go in, because we got to get this subject taken care of. Our subject should be the main focus of our scene. And because it was shot with our subject being the main focus of our scene, that's what we want to focus on. So you can read this. Again, you want to read that trace information from top to bottom. So what do I mean when I say top to bottom? Well, right here, we've got 0 and we've got 1023. On a lot of other, we'll say a lot of the other scopes, it may say from 0 to 100, and but this is basically goes from 0 to 1023 because it's trying to measure something based on a 10-bit scale. All right, so that's the reason why it does that number. I had to get some information on that to be able to tell that to you, but that's the reason why ours goes from 0 to 1023 instead of just 0 to 100. Now, proportion wise, it's the same deal. All right, it's the same deal. Proportion wise, it's the same deal. This would be what, 10, 20, 30, 50, 60, 70, 80, 100. Same deal proportion wise, but just think of it in terms, this is for a 10-bit image, which is, you're going to have cameras that shoot at a much higher resolution, and you can just say that that's what it is. So now we can see here that in this trace right here, let's see if we can get along a kind of a decent shot. Let's find our hero image. I think I want to keep it by right there. That's cool. So we can kind of see where our trace is right now. We have space, we have place where we can move from here to here. Down at the 0 line, when you get to that 0 line, you're going to be clipping, okay? What that means is that you have crushed the blacks. That means crushing the shadows. There won't be any more detail in those shadows. And then also here in the 1023 range, if you get those highlights of this trace all the way up there, I'm not talking about this stuff that's naturally kind of there. And yes, you can fix that as well, but I'm talking about the areas of the trace that we are concerned with. If you get that all the way up here and you go beyond that 1023, you'll enter into the world of pure white. If you come down here and you get below 0, you'll enter into the world of pure black. When you do that, basically you're going to be making your image non-broadcast saved. Okay, so there's plenty of tools in here to make sure that, hey, if you need to get this to a network or you need to get this on a platform where it needs to be broadcast safe so that it looks the same on all devices, units, whatever it is, or whatever the medium that you're going to be putting this on, whether it's internet, whether it's social media, whether it's television. This is what would allow you to be able to stay in broadcast safe as far as exposure. So we use this to measure out exposure, okay? And as we can see, and this is a flat image, and the reason why it's a flat image is because it was shot in log. Actually, it's a Blackmagic 6K RAW file, but I shot it in the film gamma, so that's the equivalent of log. But now, let's talk about where the trace lies. So there is I need to pull that up. Let me see real quick. I need to pull that up. Okay, guys, so now what I have here is I have the Ansel Adams zone system. Let me move this out of the way real quick. I'm going to show you something. So we've got the Ansel Adams zone system. I just came out here so I could be able to pull down a screen grab of it for you. Let's see. All right, now, so in the Ansel Adams zone system, it basically shows you from scale of 0 to 10. Again, we'll call this 0 to 1023. It shows you the areas for different levels of exposure. If you go down to that 0 level, you're pure black. Okay, now if you go down into that the one level or the 100 level, you're near black. It's going to be difficult for you to get details in the shadows, and then so on and so on. Darker black, you will get slight detail, but as you begin to get up here to the 3rd level, you get a chance to get a lot more detail. So that also kind of lets you know, okay, look, if I don't want my shadows to be clipped and I want to still be able to see information in the shadows, and I need to be around that 300 mark. Now here we go for skin tones. You've got your 400s all the way to the top of your 700s. You've got medium dark skin. You've got the middle gray for tan or light skinned or white or light black skin. Then you've got in the 600s, that should be the range for your middle light or average white skin tones. And then for your 7, you've got your light gray for pale white skin tones. Now, for things like skies, clouds, this is where you get into the 8s and the 900s. But as you begin to approach that 1000 level, remember that 1000 level is going to put you at pure white. Okay, and then when you go to the 900s, you'll be able to see slight detail as far as your clouds and your sky information. But then when you go into the 8s, it almost seems as if, okay, we should be almost practically trying to do a full exposure between the 300s and the 800s. But creatively, do what you do. You know, everything doesn't have to be, a certain kind of way, but like I said, creatively do what you do, because everything doesn't have to always be exposed. You got that subject popping out. Hey, look, do what you do. That's what I'm going to always tell you. These tools are just your tools for you to learn how to understand them, how to not be afraid of them or intimidated by them. So that's what I want to do for you. There's a lot of these things that, okay, you watch a video, something to call maybe like understanding scopes in DaVinci, and you get in there and they run through it so quick, and at the end it's probably going to be like a light meter or something like that for sale. But again, not to knock it, but I want to make sure I fill in those gaps. You know what I'm saying? So I want to make sure I fill in those gaps. You see how that trace is moving? The trace is moving. You can see where your subject is. You can also see now, based on what we just finished saying, that it would appear that this is right around the old 235, 240 mark. So what would that mean? That would mean that for our subject, we probably want to get him a little more exposure. Now, where will we begin to do that? We will begin to do that once we've gone in and corrected the overall exposure, once we've gone in and got us a Rec 709 based image. And what that means is the whole, getting it the way you saw it in camera before you begin to, do any other fancy editing to it. We're talking about correcting our, getting it into a Rec 709 image, making sure that we've gotten our image properly exposed, making sure we've got our white balance and our color balance done, our saturation levels, and then at that point still, we're going to check that trace. We're going to check the trace information, and then we're going to look and see just how our subject is exposed. And if we need to increase that, that's when we'll go into Power Window World, so we can isolate our subject, track him through the shot, and we'll begin to make those adjustments to make sure that he looks like an actual human being, and he has proper exposure and is the highlight or the brightest part of the image. That's how we use this waveform scope. My bad, I said vector. That's how we use this waveform scope. Let me come in here to settings. All right, so you can see here you can actually turn on the colorize, so you can kind of see more information, but I like to keep that separate. Everybody doesn't like to keep it separate, but I do. You could literally come in here and on this scope, you could make adjustments to your red levels, your green levels, and your blue levels. And when you're able to make the adjustments to get all of those to line up, guess what you get? You get pretty much a perfect white balance. So that's another way you can be able to use the waveform. I just like to, use the, I like to turn that off, but you can also get it here. You can go into just your Y and not your RGB, and you can use that. Do that. Take that colorize off. Your extents are going to kind of show like your mins and maxes on like your waveform. I keep that off as well. On your waveform, you can increase the brightness of it, but then you kind of lose more of the detail the brighter that you make it. Okay. As far as on the graticules will allow you to be able to get your bar to really kind of come in and pop out. If you're just having a hard time seeing what those numbers are, those levels, you can use that. I like to keep it all somewhere around the center, but you can make them go away. You can bring them in slight. Just kind of depends on what you want to do. Your reference levels, I don't really mess with this. Let's see what it does. Yeah, like I said, you can't break it. Okay, your highs, let's see what that does. Not really sure, I guess, but I don't really mess with those. So, and again, you can also come in and let's go to colorize. You come in here, you got your red, you turn your different ones. I've got your blue, turn your blue off and just use your greens. Come in, same thing with your, what did that do? Yeah, come in and turn your reds on and turn your greens off. You can come in and see what those different exposure levels, even in terms of your RGB values. Come here and reset that, turn that colorize off, go back into my Y, my chroma levels, and I'm good. But I mean, really, for the most part, that's that. I'll tell you what, let's grab a couple more images, and then we'll look and see just how the trace is affected by different types of images. Let's see. just want to grab a couple. See if we can get a little action in here. Some more color and light. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, that works. Okay. Yeah, that works. Come on in and, okay, yeah, cool. Had a great time shooting every last one of these, so I'm happy to use them as my examples. It's called getting your money's worth. All right, so now even on here, you can see where the actual graph is concentrated. Let's bring this up. All right. Gonna come in here, open that out, expand that out a little bit more. There we go. That's the way I like it. All right, now, so as you can see, and I'm going to let me see, let me make this a little smaller. I know you guys can see now. All right, so now look where her graph is at. You know, you can almost see where the expression of her hands are with everything else, but just kind of keep looking there. You see, you can see, look where the trace is. You know, look where that trace is. Yeah. Look where that trace is. It's right in here. It's right in here. Everything else just extra. Everything else is extra. This is where we want to focus. This is where the collection of pixels and light are within our scope. So, you know, you can kind of keep looking at that. Once you get that narrowed down, you say, okay, yeah, now we know what we're getting ready to work with. And so she would be of a lighter, fairer skin. So I'm going to say for her levels, her exposure would probably begin to approach, as far as even on the highlights, it begin to approach that 512 mark. Okay, that might be a little much, but we're going to be able to bring everything down. You know, we can add and apply proper contrast. We can adjust our pivot and our detail. We can come in and adjust our exposure, even using the curves. But that's going to get us where we need to go. Let me turn my clips back on so I can see my next clip. Okay, here's another one. Okay, let's move the playhead and see where everybody falls at on the scope within the trace. Look at that. She begins to go. So you see now where her trace is, right? This is the information that you would be looking at correcting. Now, everything is a representation of what you're working with, but this right here is the trace. And we're reading from top to bottom. You know, we're not clipping on in the highlights, nor are we clipping in the shadows. We've got a lot of room to really expand and get the absolute most out of this image. We're going to be able to expand this thing from here. We have all this room to play with. But creatively, we're probably not going to go this high. We're probably not going to go this low. You know, just kind of looking at this. But for the most part, this is the trace. And you can see how it's working. Look at that. Yeah. Yep. See, she's just kind of stagnant. But then as we get a little closer to the end of that clip, you can see where she begins to move because her trace will begin to move. There she goes. There she goes. Yeah. There we go. So, you know, this is how you look at and use the waveform. I mean, you know, it doesn't. You may say, hey, that video could have probably been a lot shorter, but I wanted you to be able to really kind of hear it and hear the thought process and go through the different settings so that you'll have not only just a visual representation of what that waveform scope is supposed to be, but also some practical uses for your evaluation. Because truth be told, every image you get, your eyes need to touch the waveform scope for that image. You know, sometimes we want to eyeball it and just take a chance, but have that pride in your craft to go ahead and follow through. There'll be plenty of time for taking shortcuts, but right now we got to get elbow deep in this thing. That's the only way you're gonna get comfortable. You just gotta practice. So stay with me. We got a ways to go. We're gonna get you there. We've learned how to navigate around the color page. We've learned how to add nodes. We've learned how to separate nodes. We've learned how to create layers for our nodes. And we did the layer mixer node. We did the parallel node. We did the outside node. We did the regular serial node. We've gone in and gotten a general overview of the scopes. Now we're going in detail on these scopes. And so we've got a couple more scope videos we're going to go through, because each one of these tools are tools that you will use basically on every single project. Or you'll need to know how to use them. And so you don't want to have to stop and go back and watch 4 or 5 YouTube videos on how to do this one thing. I want to give it to y'all right now. We're going to cut you some time and give you your time back. All right. So guys, look, hopefully this video has brought some added value to you and your content creation. I want to, again, welcome you back to the channel. It's your boy JT. I'm happy to do this. I'm having a ball with it. I can't wait to see where we go with this. So look, thank you guys for coming back. Thank you guys for searching and choosing me to help you to come through this process. I'm having a ball. I can't wait for you all to see where we're going. And the crazy thing about it is that we're going to get there together. I'm just going to help you to shortcut it, but believe it or not, every time I do this, it makes me better. So I'm glad to be going through my process and have you guys right here along with me. So hey, if you're new here, consider subscribing and joining the community. We're growing. I mean, hey, we're 527. Hey, that's big, because, you know, a couple of months ago, I think anyway, you know, so look, it's a journey for me. And I'm glad that you guys are sharing your journeys with me as well. So, hey, let's grow together. We about to get there. We about to get there. So, to the next video.